Hi guys, welcome to my channel. I don't know how, but somehow I read 5 books this month, which is already a lot for me at any point, but especially since this month was so busy for me IRL is like really impressive. Now, we've got a mix all across the star spectrum, so let's get into it. And remember that if you enjoyed this video, then please give it a like and subscribe to my channel. Thank you! The first book that I read in April was When No One Is Watching by Alyssa Cole. This is an adult thriller about a black woman who moves back home to the neighborhood she grew up in, and at first everything is normal. Everyone she's known all her life is still there. It's a nice community of people, etc. But then her people of color neighbors start mysteriously disappearing overnight and seemingly being replaced by white people the next day. At first, it just seems like people are moving, like, normal things, but then more and more people are disappearing and being replaced at a quicker pace, like people who would not, like, never move, never sell their house ever. They're seemingly disappearing overnight and being replaced. And it starts even affecting, like, local businesses and stuff like that. And so the main lady, Sydney, decides to team up with this new guy in her neighborhood, Theo. He's white, by the way. And the two of them start investigating to like get to the bottom of what's really going on before she's the next to go missing. I gave this a 4.5 out of 5 stars. I rather enjoyed this quite a lot. I think judging from a more like objective quality stance, it's probably more of like a 3 to 4 star book, but I personally had a blast while reading this, so I'm giving it a 4.5 rounded up to 5 on Goodreads. I loved the environment of this world. The sense of community between the neighbors that had been there forever was very nice and wholesome. I also really liked both protagonists, Sydney and Theo, and thought they each provided a very different and very interesting perspective on the world around them, with Sydney giving the reader insight into what things are normally like for this little community of older neighbors, and Theo's side allowing the reader to see the villain's mask drop and get hints at what's really going on. As like the bad guys, the bad guys are white, he's white, so the bad guys are like, hey, join us, join us. But of course he doesn't want to because he's actually a decent person. The story, I do think, flies off the rails a little bit in the final chapter or two, but it didn't bother me enough to sour my enjoyment of the book. And also, like, the author did such an amazing job at creating this sense of paranoia with things happening that are just eerie enough to make you feel like something sinister is happening or had just happened, but seemingly normal enough to make you question if anything actually happened or if you're just imagining things. Like, all throughout the book, weird things kept happening to Sydney, like noises of people being in her home, but when she checks, there's no one there. Just like all kinds of stuff like that. And she keeps thinking, like, did this just happen or am I hearing and seeing things now? Like, am I actually going crazy? And I was like, me too. Like, am I going crazy and these are red herring events or are these weird things actually connected to the sinister plot happening? So, like, just the way that the author was able to create that sense of doubt and fear, both within the characters and the reader, was so good and really fun for me. So, yeah, I really just loved this story, like, in every regard. Like, it was really good. Next, I read The Cruel Prince by Holly Black. This is a young adult fantasy about a mortal girl, Jude, who lives in this magical world full of fairies and mermaids and all that kind of stuff. She's at that age where she's trying to figure out like what she wants to do with her life, and after a series of events is hired by the crown prince of the land to become one of his spies. After the crown prince is murdered in a coup at his coronation, Jude is then thrust into a civil war as she tries to figure out like how to keep the crown out of the hands of evil. I gave this a 2 out of 5 stars. This barely got 2 stars. It was sitting at 1 star for like the longest time. This book was like absolutely dreadful for like 60 to 75% of the way. But then when it finally got into part two, because it's divided up into part one and part two. So when it finally got to part two, it like really picked up and got really interesting at that point. Like, I literally just hated all of the first part for multiple reasons. I found the main character, Jude, very annoying and wanted to slap her at like every single moment. The bullying part was just over the top and nonstop. It wasn't even bullying half the time, it was like just her classmates trying to straight up commit crimes like drugging and trying to kill her. There also just felt like there was no actual plot in part one. It just felt like Jude was just stumbling around from scene to scene doing stuff. Like, we start with her wanting to be a knight without her actually making any strides to actually do that, might I add. Then there's this like field day sports thing with a school that gets hyped but isn't really a big deal. Then the crown prince wants her to become a spy for him because she's the main character. Then she enters her white savior complex era and tries to free this like enchanted slave girl without giving her any empathy or time to process what just happened to her. So the girl ends up killing herself. And all the while, like every other scene, her classmates are just trying to like humiliate or murder her. It just felt like there was no clear vision or idea of where we were going with all this. So then it finally started to pick up at the end of the first part and all throughout the second part when at the Crown Prince's coronation, the guy that Jude became a spy for, a coup happens and the prince's brother and Jude's stepdad kill nearly every single person in the royal family, including the crown prince, to try and secure power for themselves. At that point, I started getting interested when everyone was like bleeding out everywhere. Don't know what that says about me as a person, but like, yeah. And the book finally figures out what it wants to do. So in the second part, it becomes all about Jude trying to like gatekeep the other prince and her stepdad from gaining ultimate power before the other prince can officially become king. So she finds out that her kid's stepbrother is actually adopted and is eligible to become the new king. So Jude and this Cardin guy that is also another prince and the only other remaining member of the royal family to not get killed come up with their own coup idea to secure power and keep it out of the hands of the evil guys, and it works with some added twist to set up the second book. The second part, with all like the political drama, I really enjoyed it and actually found it interesting. The twists were entertaining. Jude was no longer being annoying and actually pretty fun to follow. Her family drama with her stepdad and twin sister was cool to watch, and the ending kind of made me want to pick up the second book to see what happens next. Not gonna lie. So, yeah, this was simultaneously a painful slog and quite entertaining. I don't understand you people that love the bully romance trip, though. Y'all are weird. Like, this was my first time ever reading like a bully romance type of book, and I didn't get the trope before, but now I like really don't understand the trope. Like, I don't understand the appeal of that. I guess some of y'all just have like a degrading kink or whatever. Like, okay, but whatever, whatever. Different people, different taste, I guess. Anyway, and I need to bring this up because I suffered all throughout this book, especially in part one, when I kept hearing this term. I need to bring up the term green gowning and curse y'all with this info because I was suffering every single time I heard this term. So, in this world, green gowning is apparently what fairies use to refer to sex because one of her male classmates made a comment about rolling around in the grass with her sister until her white dress turned green. So, yeah, there's that. And then from that point forward, all throughout the first part, I had to hear the main character think about green gowning. And every single time it was said, I visibly cringed and wanted to rip my ears out and my brain off my head. Because, like, what the fuck even is that? Like, I hate the term green gowning. Like, no, no, just no. Anyway, like I said, the narrator for the audiobook is very good. Like, I think her voice was actually perfect for this type of book, and she did a very nice job of making everyone sound distinct when they spoke to each other. So, yeah, like some positives, some negatives. Yeah, let's move on. Curse of the Night Witch by Alex Astor is next. This is a middle grade fantasy about a boy named Tor who lives on this island where everyone is born with a magic tattoo that grants you like a special gift and determines your role in society. Like, if you're born with a music note, then you're really good at singing and will become a singer when you grow up. If you have a knife emblem, then you're really good at cooking and will grow up to be a chef, etc. Tor hates the gift he is born with, the gift of leadership, and wishes to have a different one. The gods are not happy about hearing this, so instead of giving him a new talent, his new magic tattoo is instead a curse that he will die within a week. Now, Tor and his two best friends must go on this quest across the island to find a way to break the curse before it's too late. I gave this a 1 out of 5 stars. Children deserve better. They deserve better. I'm making a separate video for this book talking about all the major things that piss me off about this book. I think that'll go live next week if things go according to plan. So I'll save most of my thoughts for that. But to sum it up, the characters are flat, there are inconsistencies galore, the writing is trash, there were way too many ideas and none of them were satisfyingly developed or explored, and the message of this book is a terrible lesson to teach to children. It really just felt like the author gave up about halfway through and just typed whatever on the page to get to the end. And where was the editor? Like, come over here. Come over here and do your job, because this felt like a first draft. I'm being so serious on that, by the way, because there were literally sections of this book that like reminded me of when I'm writing a story and get stuck on how to get from point A to point B. So like I just type out some nonsense to move on, and then I'll circle back to that one section and fix it later in editing. Except this author and her editor like never circled back to any of those sections to fix them in editing. Again, I'm planning a whole video for this garbage, but yeah, it's just bad, and I see why Alex Astor wants to pretend this book does not exist. Next, I read Star Wars Jedi Battle Scars by Sam Maggs. Taking place between the video games Jedi Fallen Order and Jedi Survivor, Battle Scars is about the Mantis crew hearing about this highly advanced stealthing technology that could either be extremely helpful in keeping surviving Jedi hidden from the Empire, or be extremely dangerous in growing the Empire's power, and them fighting to get it for themselves and keep it out of the hands of evil. It's also about Merrin getting a girlfriend, which we love that for her. I gave this a 2.5 out of 5 stars. I don't hate it as much as quite a few other people, I think, simply because I kinda came into this with low expectations, since the ultimate purpose of this book is to drum up some hype for the new Jedi Survivor game. Like, it wasn't that good, but it also wasn't the worst either. It was just meh. The plot is basically a side quest, the writing is very basic, Cere and Cal feel very out of character all throughout the book. The fifth brother barely shows up despite being massive on the cover, and I think the author was more focused on writing the romance between Merrin and Fret instead of the actual plot. I did not at all like the fighting between the Mantis crew. Now, I can believe that they all have different endgame goals in life, but I refuse to believe there is this layer of tension always bubbling beneath the surface with these people. Like, that makes no sense. And while I loved Merrin's fling with the ex-Imperial chick Fret and thought they were kinda cute, it took up so much time. If the book's description let us know it was going to be a hugely significant thing, I'd be fine with it taking up like half the runtime. But the description leads you to believe this is a fast paced adventure about the characters racing across the galaxy trying to keep this technology out of the Empire's hands while being relentlessly chased by the Inquisitor, and it's just not that. Like, it's just not. If nothing else, though, I do appreciate this book for pissing off conservatives with Merrin being pansexual and making out with another woman, especially since, like, are we really going to pretend the Night Sisters as a whole aren't a bunch of queer witches? Like, be serious. Come on now. Overall, it was just a meh book, but I'm still very hyped for the Jedi Survivor game, and this helped me get reacquainted with everyone before the release, so I guess it did its job in that respect. So yeah. And the final book that I read in April is Prodigy by Marie Lu. This is a young adult dystopia and the second book in the Legend trilogy. We pick up with the main characters June and Day joining the rebellion to overthrow the government. They're tasked with luring the new elector, leader of the government, into a trap and then killing him to give the rebels a major lead in the ongoing war. However, things get complicated. With June being tasked to lure the new elector into the trap, she gains his trust but comes to believe he's not really a bad guy and tries to figure out how to stop the assassination before it's too late. While Day discovers even darker secrets that the government is hiding and wants to kill the new elector even more. By the way, I should mention this before we get even further. The new elector's name is named Andon, so keep that in mind. The one thing they have in common is that both of them start coming to the idea that the rebellion seems to be hiding things and might not be as morally righteous as they once thought, and they must decide what to do with all of this and how to save their own skins and the people that they care about around them. I gave this a 3 out of 5 stars. I didn't like it as much as Legend, but it was alright. I felt like it was overall kinda slow at the start, then in the middle, Day's side of the story was a drag, while June's was quite interesting, and then towards the end, it really picked up for both of them and became very exciting. I found Day very annoying and bratty and whiny for most of this book, until around like the last 100 pages or so when he finally snapped out of it and actually became more interesting once again. On the other hand, June was very interesting to follow, and I liked watching her mind work as she knows the Republic is evil, yet believes Andon when he says he wants to change things for the better, and trying to figure out whether to use her privilege to get in good graces with the Republic again to spark change from the inside of the system, or whether to take up arms with the common folk and spark change from the streets. Like, watching her mind work as she navigates through all this was very interesting. I could do without the love square between Day, June, Tess, and Andon, because that was my least favorite aspect of this book, and probably why the middle was such a slog for me, because the middle focused a lot on the love square. Here's the thing. I don't really care about romance subplots in general when the characters are fighting in a war. Like, in other types of books, I love a good romance subplot, but in specific books when the characters are like fighting in a war, I hate romance subplots. For the simple reason that like y'all could die at any second and you're worried about who is liking who, like be serious. But besides that, I also just like don't care because I know at the end of the day, Day and June are gonna be endgame because main boy, main girl, yada yada yada. And the other two matches are just trash. Tess, aka Day's best friend, is so annoying in this book, with her whole purpose basically just to have like a crush on Day and then get angry when he doesn't respond the way she wants and still like has feelings for June. Like, honey, I know you're 13, but grow up and quit being a brat. Like, I'm sorry. Ugh. And then Andon pursuing June just gave me the ick, because, sir, you are my age. You are like 19 or 20 years old having googly eyes over a 15-year-old. That is disgusting, and you need to be in jail. So, yeah, I hated the Love Square nonsense, but something I did really enjoy was the world building. We got to learn more about the Republic in other places of the country. We got to learn more info about like the Republic's government, aka the relationship between the elector and Congress. We got to see how the Patriots operate. We learned how the rest of the world views the Republic and a peek at how technologically and socially advanced other places are compared to the Republic. And we finally got to see a part of the colonies for ourselves and learn how their society operates and like how it differs from the Republic, but like is the exact same in other aspects. Let me explain this. So you have the Republic, which is like a tyrannical militaristic government, and which like takes up like half of the United States, like the western half of the United States. Then you have the colonies, which takes up the eastern half of the United States. Well, what's left of it in this dystopian world, and the colonies are like their own separate people. It's like a different country. Like there's kind of two different countries, but now they're all on the land of the former United States. So they're kind of the same country going into the Civil War, right? And then you have the Patriots, which is like the rebellion seemingly working to overthrow the Republic, right? Okay, so just like clearing all that up so we don't get confused. Okay. Anyway, I really liked how in book one the colonies were built up to be this like antithesis to the Republic that the government wants to destroy because it's like so different from them, but citizens view as like a safe haven for that exact reason. And then here in Prodigy, that illusion is shattered when we actually go to the colonies and see that, yeah, it's different, but ultimately it's just as corrupt and vile as the Republic. Even one of the characters says that in some ways the colonies are better and worse than the Republic, and in other ways the Republic is better and worse than the colonies. And I really just like that idea of these two places that are at war with each other really just being two sides of the same coin. And honestly, this was released in I think 2012, 2013, but reading this in 2023, I can really see the United States dissolving into either side of the Republic or the colonies. Given everything happening in the news lately, neither side is that unrealistic for the US to become because the hyper-consumeristic society with corporation overlords working citizens to their graves of the colonies is just really what would happen if corporations were given even more freedom to do whatever the fuck they want in the US. And then the Republic is just the no freedom, highly militaristic, patriotism to a cult level, everyone must be the exact same or else you're a criminal and deserve to die type of society that Republicans are trying to build with all the new scary bills being proposed, passed, or overthrown right now. So, overall, I had some issues like with pacing and the love square, but in other aspects, I like loved it. Like I loved the world building and the plot was pretty good for the most part. I do want to get the third book and spin-off coming up, so you'll probably hear me talk about those books in a few months from now. But now, what am I planning on reading in May? Well, I've got three books that I definitely want to get to, and two maybe books. First, A Reaper at the Gates. This is the third book in the An Embers in the Ashes series, and I am really excited to finally have enough free time to get to it. I read the first two books last year and loved them, gave them both 5 stars, and they ended up as some of my favorites of the year, so I do have high expectations for this third book, which I hope having high expectations does not lead to my downfall. Then I want to read Star Wars Resistance Reborn. I've had my eye on this for a few years now, and I think it's finally time to get to it. I love the sequels, and I'm always excited to be in that like era of the galaxy, so I'm really looking forward to this. I'm also currently reading Ugly Love for a video where I attempt to read Colleen Hoover for the first time. I have many thoughts so far, and I just hit the 100-page mark, but I'll save most of those thoughts for that upcoming video. All I'll say right now is I'm losing my mind. Please send help. Please send help. As for my two maybes, I'm thinking of picking up The Wicked King and The Queen's Secret. The Wicked King is the second book in the Folk of the Air series, aka the sequel to The Cruel Prince. Yes, I gave The Cruel Prince 2 stars, but I really got the feeling that this is one of those series where the first book kinda sucked, but then the others are pretty good. Like, I just got that impression with how the last 25% went, so I want to see if I'm correct or not. And then The Queen's Secret is the second book in The Queen's Secret duology by Melissa de la Cruz, after The Queen's Assassin, which I read 2 or 3 years ago. I didn't like the first book at all, really. Like, I think I gave it like 2 stars. But for some reason, I've got this itch in the back of my mind to read the second book, and I think May is probably a good month to do that. Like, hear me out. Like, you see the covers on screen. I get spring vibes from both of them, and May is like the last month of spring, so like it's kind of now or never. And that's it from me. If you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe. Tell me in the comments what you have read this month, or if you've read any of these books and have thoughts on them. I'll talk to you next time. Bye.